Would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Won't you please? Won't you please? Please, won't you be my neighbor? Hello, neighbors. Good to see all of you. It's time for another Bible study. I'm not taking any requests to co-host. Sorry. So this is your opportunity to study with me. I'm going to give you your choice. We're on to a new book. We just finished our study of Daniel. And so now you get to pick your book. Before you do that, though, you get to pick which color you want to start with today. So we've got pink, blue, and green. Of course, we'll cycle through as we do each chapter of whichever book we end up doing. But vote right now in the comments section. Would you rather have pink, blue, or green? Take your pick right now. I'm seeing some blue vote. Hello, Echo. Good to see you, sir. Lots of blue votes. Oh, green votes are picking up. Look at that. Oh, got votes even going in YouTube. Man, we're really flying here. All right, looks like the winner is going to be green, then blue, then pink. That's the order we're going to do there. Green, then blue, then pink. All right, good job. So now you get to vote which book of the Bible you want to start with. We're starting a whole new book. We can either do 1 Peter, or we can start Proverbs. Proverbs has 31 chapters. We're not going through all 31 tonight. Some of you probably would stick with me if I tried, but we're not going to do that. So either 1 Peter or Proverbs, which one would you rather start tonight? We might get through all of 1 Peter tonight if we did that one. In fact, very likely. Ooh, seems kind of dead even. Wow, man, this is a pretty even run here. Oh, wow. Not even a vote for Peter over there in YouTube land, huh? All right. YouTube wants nothing but Proverbs. All right, fair enough. Wow. Okay, man. But the other two are overwhelmingly saying Peter, even though I see a lot of repeats. Oh, wow. All right. So we will go ahead and we will we'll go ahead and start Proverbs, because First Peter, the people who wanted it were very adamant, but there were certainly more votes for Proverbs, so that's what we're going to start today. All right. So that being said, there we go. Just had to make an adjustment for YouTube. If you have any connection problems, I just want you to know I am live on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. So if one of those doesn't work, go to one of the others. Instagram usually is the most stable of my connections. Don't know why. You would think TikTok might be, or YouTube, but no, Instagram is usually the most stable. So if your connection drops, go to one of the others. All right. So that being said, just a reminder for everybody what's going on. We are doing a Bible study. I am not Dinks the Puppet, but I am his traveling companion. He does the videos, I do the lives. Works out better for both of us. We're going to be studying in Proverbs, starting in chapter 1, reading from the English Standard Version. You're welcome to follow along or grab your own Bible. All right, let's see if I can, there we go. All right, just making sure that everybody's angle is good. I think we're all right. Let's get started, shall we? The beginning of knowledge. Now, this is not in the original script right here. Anytime you see bold, that is something that the translators have put in there to help break up the text. They're saying this is a section, this is a section. They're trying to help you from the context. They've put it together that these are different sections. And with Proverbs, there's not just one author. You actually have a collection of authors, including David, Solomon, and a few other people. Just like Psalms has many different authors, so does Proverbs. A proverb is simply a wisdom nugget, basically. If you want to put it in kind of our modern vernacular, here's a little nugget of wisdom. And sometimes it is small, sometimes it is long, but in the Jewish culture, it's always put in poetic terms. That's why you see the breaks like this, like just because it just looks like a poem. But with Jewish poetry, you have to remember one thing: it doesn't rhyme by sound. How does it rhyme? I've said this a few times. I want to see if anybody's been on here to remember what I say. It doesn't rhyme by sound, it rhymes by what? Let's see who gets that. Hello, Peter. No, we don't have a list of all the authors. Certainly not for Psalms. I don't think it lists them all for Proverbs either. If you're living in sin with your girlfriend, yeah, you should probably stop. Syllables? No, not syllables. Good try. Not rhythm, not meter. You guys are thinking too much about modern poetry. Okay? You need to think more along the lines of just basic speaking or writing. Rhythm and meter, those things did not exist in the ancient world. Okay, that didn't come about until you get into like medieval Europe. Not the first letter, no. Although, I mean, I know where you're getting from that. They did have some learning tools, like Psalm 119 starts with the first with the next letter of their alphabet: Aleph, Bet, Damal, Gimel, Hey. All right, so it doesn't look like anybody's got it, so that's okay. That's why you're here. So it actually rhymes by concept or by idea. And so poetry in Hebrew, no, it doesn't rhyme sounds, but it rhymes concepts. So it'll say something one way and then either repeat it, or it'll say something one way and then say the opposite to make the same point. So example, if I were to say the hot dogs were hot, then the next line might say, and warm the cheap sausages were. Or if I wanted to flip it, I could say the hot dogs were hot, but the buns were cold. And I'm still talking about a hot dog in your hand. So that's kind of the idea of how their poetry rhymes, is by concept, by idea. And so you'll see this a lot, not just in Proverbs, not just in Psalms. You'll see this all throughout what we call wisdom literature. Job is a good example of that. Jonah as well. Anything where you see this kind of structure, you'll see songs that have been written into the narrative structures, like the song of Miriam's song or the song of Barak. All through the narrative portions, occasionally it'll interrupt there, and it's still going to have that same structure. Okay, so this was actually written in the text: the Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel. Okay, not all of them are from Solomon, but he began it. Okay, so let's go ahead and read what we have. Verse 2: to know wisdom and instruction, to understand words of insight, to receive instruction in wise dealing, in righteousness, justice, and equity, to give prudence to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the youth. Let the wise hear and increase in learning, and the one who understands obtain guidance. To understand a proverb and a saying, the words of the wise and their riddles. The fear of the I am is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. Okay, so let's go over this a little bit. What he's doing is giving you an introduction to wisdom itself. This is the introduction to everything he wants to say that is his portion of the book of Proverbs. So he's saying, here's the value of gathering wisdom, gathering understanding. And the ultimate conclusion he comes to is the fear of the I am, or the fear of the Lord, as we say it, is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. Now, you have heard it said, to quote Jesus, you have heard it said, but you have heard this stated as wisdom. That's a different translation. That's King James. Nothing wrong with King James, but there's a disagreement. The translators back in the 1600s thought it should be translated as wisdom. But the translators here in the 21st century, they say, well, according to how we've studied ancient languages, we think it should be knowledge. Okay, now what's the difference? Well, knowledge is just facts. Like knowledge is knowing that you're 300 miles away from your next city or something like that. Okay, where wisdom is, I should take a drink with me because I might get thirsty. That's wisdom. Okay, that's the difference here. So which is it? Well, I'm inclined to trust the modern scholars, not because everything new is smarter. I'm not saying we're smarter than people who came before us. But here's the thing. Just because something is first or earlier does not mean it's better. This is what people who are KJV only don't understand. They don't understand that the people of the Middle Ages, while they were educated and they did specialize in education, they still did not understand Greek or Hebrew as well as we do now. We have literally 10 times or more the source material to work from than they did back then. So we understand the ancient languages better because we've had so much more time to study and find old documents and be able to put things together. That also being said, the source material is different too. So the King James used a source material that was from the 1400s. It was called the Textus Receptus. Now, the modern translations, like the ESV and ASB, they use a text called the critical text, which actually comes from the 400s. You hear that difference? 1400s versus 400s. So even though this is a modern translation, it uses a source manuscript that's 1,000 years earlier than the source material for the King James Version. So just because the translation is earlier doesn't mean it's more correct. So if they say this word here is knowledge, I'm going to take their word for it. Now, I do want to explain this. Usually I ask the question, but I went ahead and read it as I am. Anytime you see a capital L-O-R-D, Lord, in the Old Testament, it is a replacement for what word? What word does that replace in the Old Testament? I said I am, but how do you say it in Hebrew? Not Elohim, you're close. Yahweh, good job, yes. Awesome. So anytime you see the capital O-R-D, that is a replacement for a Yahweh or I am that I am. It is the Tetragrammaton. It is the name the Lord gave to Moses at the burning bush, okay? And the reason why they do this is not because they're trying to hide God's name or something silly like that. No, this is the translators showing respect to God. They when the scriptures would be read aloud in the synagogues, even Jesus himself would have done this, okay? When they read the scripture out loud, because not everybody could read, they would read it, and because not everybody had a copy of all the scrolls, okay, then they would just read it to everybody. Here's your reading for the day. When they would get to the name of the Lord, Yahweh, they would actually say the word Adonai, which means Lord. So that was to not use the Lord's name in an unworthy manner or disrespectful. It was just trying to show him a lot of respect, a lot of deference. And so the translators are trying to do the same thing. But they're still showing you. If they were trying to hide it, they wouldn't capitalize the letters. They would just say Lord or something. So they're identifying it, but unless you know that, there's no way for you to know that. They don't exactly put a key in the front of the Bible, and they probably should. Okay, we can say that. But anytime you see the capital O-R-D in Lord, it is a replacement for Yahweh, or I am that I am. Now, on top of that, if you see a capital G-O-D, where O and D is capital, then that is also a replacement for Yahweh. So why the difference? Because sometimes it says Lord God, it says Adonai Yahweh. So they'll do a lowercase Lord, but an uppercase God. Still doing the same thing, but not just doing Lord, Lord. See how that works? All right. So this is the introduction here, and this is the epitome of the introduction. The fear of the I am is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. So if you despise wisdom and instruction, then you don't have the fear of the Lord. Like, I don't need anyone to teach me. Well, then guess what? You are doomed for destruction, and that's stated several times in here. All right, so before we move on to verse 8, any questions specifically for Proverbs? Specifically for Proverbs. Just give you guys a second if someone's typing. Okay. So we wouldn't call it Adonai or just Yahweh. Well, so, I mean, you can. There's nothing wrong with using God's name. This was just their way of showing respect, and the translators did the same thing. But I say Yahweh or I am a lot because I want you to understand just how important it is that all throughout the Gospel of John, Jesus is saying, you have to believe that I am. You have to believe that I am. You have to believe that I am. Or before Abraham was, I am. Or I am the door. Or I am the good shepherd. He's constantly telling you bluntly that he is the I am. He's not just saying I am God, because you could say, what God? No, he's literally saying I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So you are welcome to use that. It's okay. Yeah, we're just getting started on the first chapter here. All right, so let's go ahead and go down to the next portion here. All right. Hear, my son. Now, this is the important part. This tells you who the author is. Everything he's about to write, Solomon is writing to his son. And if I had thought about it, I would have brought it up for you to see. It's in the car, but I actually am doing something similar. I have a journal that I am writing for my daughter, and I'm just plugging in little bits of wisdom like at least once a week is what I try to do, where I'll just write something about what's going on. Here's what I think about it. Here's how I prayed about it. And trying to give her whatever wisdom I can from my perspective. And I'm probably about 4/5 of the way through the journal. So I've started it before she was born, and she's 13 now. So clearly I haven't done it exactly every week, but I've been trying to. So that's something that I'm doing, and yes, I got the idea from Proverbs here. So, hear, my son, your father's instruction, and forsake not your mother's teaching. So what's interesting is he groups in the mother here. So the mother would have been whichever queen was the mother of his heir. And so it's like, both of us have some wisdom for you because we're older than you and we've experienced life. So we want you to pay attention to this, okay? So the father's instruction and the mother's teaching, that's what these are. The instruction and the teaching, they are a graceful garland for your head and pendants for your neck. So one thing about the Hebrew language is everything is very concrete, especially when you get into poetry. This is why it describes the sky as a firmament, it describes it as a dome because it's big and impressive. It describes God being slow to anger as God having a long nose. If you imagine Pinocchio walking towards you very angry, you have a little bit of a while before you get to his face. You'll know he's angry before you get to his face. So the concrete language here with Hebrew is the imagery of you need to carry this around with you everywhere you go, and you'll be better for it. That's the idea of saying the instruction and the teaching is a garland for your head. So think of, like if you went to Hawaii, they give you those flower leis. If they made one just that fits your head, not goes around your neck, but your head, think of that. That's like a garland for your head. And then pennant for your neck. Think of like a golden necklace, that type of thing. So this helps you be more appealing as a person, makes you a better, more valuable person. Okay, just carry it with you everywhere you go. My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent. If they say, come with us and let us lie in wait for blood, let us ambush the innocent without reason. Like Sheol, let us swallow them up alive, and whole like those who go down to the pit. And we shall find all precious goods. We shall fill our houses with plunder, and throw in your lot among us. We will all have one purse. My son, do not walk in the way with them, but hold back your foot from their paths. For their feet run to evil, and they make haste to shed blood. For in vain is a net spread in the sight of any bird. But these men lie in wait for their own blood, yet they set an ambush for their own lives. Such are the ways of everyone who is greedy for unjust gain. It takes away the life of its possessors. Now, this is interesting here, so let's go over this again, all right? So if sinners entice you, so anybody, when he says sinners, it's a broad category, but he's not saying somebody who messes up and needs to ask for forgiveness. That's not what he's talking about. People who identify by their sin, people who don't care about God's truth. Remember, what is the beginning of knowledge? The fear of the Lord. These people here do not fear the Lord. That's the connection here, okay? So if these people who do not fear the Lord are calling to you, hey, come with us. Now, what's going on here is lie in wait for blood. They are ready to pounce on somebody. This is kind of the idea of the highwayman or the robber hiding in the bushes that jumps out and takes your money. And this is not kind and somewhat funny like Robin Hood. No. This is, we're going to beat the crap out of you. We don't care if you die. We're going to take everything you have. Okay? And for some people, this is a normal way of life. In the world, there are many places where this is true. There are many places, even in the United States, where this is true. Okay? That's why they don't walk alone. But what he's saying is, don't be like one of these. Why? Then he gives you the reasons. But these are the type of things they said. So like Sheol, so Sheol is what we call Hades or hell. It's just the realm of the dead. As of right now, there are only people there that are awaiting judgment. Everyone who is awaiting the promise of the resurrection is with the Lord. But before Christ rose from the dead, everybody went there. You can read about that in Luke chapter 16. There's a side where those who are in torment awaiting judgment. And there's another side called Abraham's bosom where people were in rest awaiting their reward. The rest area has been emptied out. But at this time, this is just a euphemism for the realm of the dead. So like the realm of the dead, or like death itself, let us swallow them alive. So they're willing to kill. That's what they're saying here. And whole, like those who go down to the pit. We shall find precious goods. We shall fill our houses with plunder. So they're willing to kill to feed their greed. That's the idea. Then they're saying, throw in your lot among us. You might have heard throw in your lot. Like, I've thrown in my lot with them, that type of thing. That is a biblical phrase that does come from this passage. To throw in your lot means to throw in your portion. Like, I'm invested. Okay, think of it as you're an investor. You've given them your money that you had and you're hoping for a return. That's the idea here. We will all have one purse. Basically, we'll have a big payday and we'll share it, is what they're promising. But he says, do not walk in the way with them. Hold back your foot from their paths. Don't even walk down to see what's going on. Don't even walk with them. Just don't go. Okay? For their feet run to evil. They're eager to do evil. They haste They make haste to shed blood. They don't. It's not only that they're okay with it, they look for reasons to do it. Okay? And see how this, and how I talked about how the poetry rhymes concepts. Here it is. For their feet run to evil, they make haste to shed blood. So feet going to a bad thing and running to a bad thing. Okay, so it is poetic right there. For in vain is a net spread in the sight of any bird. So if you put a net on the ground to catch an animal, and the animal's a bird, it's like, that's rather dumb. You can't. It's not going to work out, you know? And so the euphemism here is, these guys are dumb. These guys are, it's like they're trying to catch a bird with a ground net. That's what he's saying. Like, these guys just don't understand. Don't be dumb like them. Because these men lie in wait for their own blood. They don't realize they're only trapping themselves. Why? Because of consequences of actions. Okay? They will reap their consequences, which he talks about a lot in Ecclesiastes. He talks a lot about in Proverbs, but we all know that that comes from who? Who dispenses that justice inevitably? That's right. God. God inevitably restores that. You have to remember, this whole thing was built on the premise of the fear of the I am is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. So the consequences always come from the I am, which is why you fear him. Okay? And it's not fear as in, oh no, he's going to squish me. It's more fear of, if I'm not his, then he's my enemy. And that should be a reason to say, oh crap. That's kind of the idea of fearing the Lord. Okay? All right. Let's move on to the next section here. Wisdom. Okay, the call of wisdom. Now, there is, I think this is it. Yeah, so there's a personification of wisdom here. And it's going to sound a lot like a very famous biblical character, okay? Wisdom is not a person. It's not a heavenly being. Literally, some people believe that this is supposed to be prophetic of Jesus himself, okay? The reason why it feels like Jesus is because Jesus is God, and the fear of the I am is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and knowledge and instruction. So if wisdom comes from God, then of course, if God becomes a man, he's going to be very wise. He's going to be the personification of wisdom, right? But here, this is not meant to be prophetic. It's going to match because Jesus was God, where therefore he was the wisest of all who ever lived. Okay? I'm not saying smartest, I'm saying wisest. He had of all of God's wisdom, he had the Holy Spirit without any kind of sin to hinder him. Okay? So this is going to feel like him when we read through it, but it is what we call an anthropomorphization. When you take something that isn't human, but you give it human qualities to make your point. That's all that's going on here, okay? Oh, I'm sorry you have to go, Courtyard, but thank you for joining. All right. So, wisdom cries aloud in the street. In the markets, she raises her voice. See that rhyming there, that poetic rhyming? At the head of the noisy streets, she cries out. At the entrance of the city gates, she speaks. So, in this personification, or this, that's the wrong word, in this anthropomorphization, it's just easier to say personification, okay? In this making wisdom into a person, okay, it's telling you where you can find wisdom. So it's saying wisdom can be found in normal street chatter. It can be found in the marketplaces when they're shouting over the crowd. It can be heard in the noisy streets or at the entrance to the city gates. Now, what's interesting is at the city gates, there was a lot of transactions done. If you go to the book of the book of Ruth, That's where what happens? What happens at the city gates in the book of Ruth? Does anybody know? Let's see who gets this one. Good to see you too. What happens at the city gates in the book of Ruth? Aha. Boaz approaches to fulfill his family right. Absolutely. There, the wise men meet there. That's where Boaz makes the deal to redeem Ruth. Yes, exactly, Izzy. Correct. Good job. So the reason why you can find wisdom at the entrance to the city gates is because that is where transactions were made. That's whether it is for money reasons or family reasons or legal reasons. A lot of times it was done at the city gates. Why? Because that's where you would find the person. Instead of chasing them all over the countryside, you would simply wait at the city gate till they either left or came back from whatever they were doing. So I ended up doing a lot of things at the city gates. This is also why David's son Absalom sat at the city gate and whined at the people, oh, if I was king, you'd have this and that and this and that, because he knew all the people would go in and out by that gate, so he could woo them over to his side. Okay, so the city gates, a lot happened there. Okay, now here are some of the things that wisdom cries out that you can hear. How long, O simple ones, will you love being simple? Right? Simple is a polite way of putting it. So basically, hey, stupid people, how long will you love being stupid? Think of it that way. It is literally meant to be comedic. Okay? How long will scoffers delight in their scoffing and fools hate knowledge? If you turn at my reproof, wisdom's reproof, okay, behold, I will pour out my spirit to you. So if wisdom causes you to turn back from being a fool, then you will get a spirit of wisdom. Now, this is why people think like, oh, it's Jesus. No, not a capital S here. The translator knows what's going on. Okay. Pouring out my spirit is with the spirit of wisdom. So it's not like a spirit like an angel or the Holy Spirit or a demon or your soul. No. Spirit as in team spirit or Christmas spirit, the generalness of that thing. Okay, so I will pour out my spirit to you means if you are willing to listen to a wise correction, you will receive a lot more wisdom with it. That's the idea. I will make my words known to you because I have called and you refuse to listen. Have stretched out my hand and no one has heeded because you have ignored all my counsel and would have none of my reproof. I also will laugh at your calamity. That's clearly not Jesus. He doesn't laugh at calamity. I will mock when terror strikes you. Okay, again, this is anthropomorphizing wisdom. Why does wisdom laugh at your calamity? Because you should have known better. You laugh at your own calamity sometimes. Like, oh man, I really knew better. I should not have done that. That was really dumb. So if you knew better, you can laugh at it later. That's kind of idea. I will mock when terror strikes you. When you are afraid of the consequences of your own dumb actions, wisdom mocks you just by its very existence. Okay? When terror strikes you like a storm and your calamity comes like a whirlwind, when distress and anguish come upon you, then they will call upon me, but I will not answer. They will seek me diligently, but will not find me. So wisdom won't help you once it's too late. That's the point. There's not going to be any kind of wisdom to get you out of the problem you made for yourself. Because they hated knowledge, and they did not choose the fear of the I am, would have none of my counsel, and despised all my reproof. Therefore they shall eat the fruit of their way, and have their fill of their own devices. For the simple are killed by their turning away, and the complacency of fools destroys them. But whoever listens to me will dwell securely and will be at ease without dread of disaster. Okay, just wisdom in general. All right. Any questions on chapter 1, Proverbs chapter 1? Yes, I am on other platforms right now. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok, and YouTube, all three of those. So if the platform you're on is having any issues, you're welcome to go to one of the others. When did quotation marks come along in writing? I just noticed they're not in the KJV. So quotation marks did exist even during the KJV times, but they're put in solely at the discretion of the translators. Okay, there's some things that the translators have to decide. Do we want to do this? Do we want to not? When it comes to punctuation, or capitalization, they have to make that determination based on the context. Okay, so King James doesn't have quotation marks in there. So what? It's poetry. We understand wisdom is talking. To be more correct for grammar, the modern translators put quotations in there, and that's okay. They're just trying to be more correct for grammar. That's all. See, if you didn't pray, would God help less? Does God need your permission to help someone? I thought God was the sovereign king, so how does prayer work? Prayer is when you agree with what God has already said. Let me say that again. Prayer is when you agree with what God has already said. Prayer isn't begging God, please, please, can I have a Cadillac? Okay? The answer is probably no. Okay? God will sometimes give you things that you ask for, but it's only ever when it's what is best for you. What you should be asking the Lord for is for His wisdom, His guidance, His provision, not what you think you need, because you're probably wrong. That's part of what having faith is. Faith is trusting God more than you trust yourself, because He's trustworthy and you are not. If we could have whatever we wanted, we would be very greedy and completely useless to the Lord. So hopefully that helps. All right, let's go ahead and go to the next chapter. Alrighty, on to the next color, blue, that's right. Well, for those of you just joining us, we are doing a Bible study. I'm not Dinks the Puppet, I am his traveling companion. He does the videos, I do the lives, works out better for both of us. We're in Proverbs chapter 2, reading from the English Standard Version. You're welcome to follow along or grab your own Bible. Here we go, the value of wisdom. All right, so now the anthropomorphization of wisdom is done. Now he's going back to addressing his son. And I can imagine that he might have written this in installments. Okay, as someone who's writing something similar for his own daughter, it makes perfect sense not to just sit there and write it all at once. But I don't know. It's an assumption on my part. You're welcome to disagree. My son, if you receive my words and treasure up my commandments with you, making your ear attentive to wisdom and inclining your heart to understanding, yes, if you call out for insight and raise your voice for understanding, if you seek it like silver and search for it as for hidden treasures, then you will understand the fear of the I Am and find the knowledge of God. This is your Elohim right here, lowercase o-d, that's Elohim, okay? So the benefit of all this here, okay? Receiving his words, he's assuming his words are wisdom. He absolutely has every right to. He asked God for wisdom, God gave him wisdom. Solomon. And so if you receive my words of wisdom, treasure up my commands with you. So value what I have to say, the instructions that I've given you, even the commandments that I've given you, okay? You listen to them, you try your best to understand them, you intentionally choose to understand them, you ask when you don't know, call out for insight. Hey, Dad, let me ask you a question, okay? Raise your voice for understanding. Can someone help me understand? There's nothing wrong. Do you understand this is a part of wisdom right here? Is asking when you don't have it. He's literally saying it's a good thing to ask when you don't know. It's a wise thing to do. It is wise to ask for wisdom. He's literally saying that. If you seek it like silver, like a valuable, precious thing that can be exchanged and given away and used, okay? Search for it as for hidden treasures. Then, when you value all of it like that, then you will understand the fear of the I am and find the knowledge of God. When you value wisdom, when you want more of it, true wisdom, you will figure all the rest out. Because all good, true wisdom comes from God, the I am. All right? For the I am gives wisdom. That's your answer right there. That's why you'll find it. If you're truly looking for wisdom and not just things to say, not just things that fit your preconceived ideas, if you truly want actual wisdom, you will find the knowledge of God. Okay? It will lead you to the Lord, to the I am, because the I am gives wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. He stores up sound wisdom for the upright. He is a shield to those who walk in integrity, guarding the paths of justice and watching over the way of his saints. Look at that. Saints is in the Old Testament. So if you belong to the Lord and you walk according to his ways, or as Paul would put it, walk according to the Spirit, walk in the Spirit, right? Same thing. Integrity, uprightness, God will give you automatically that he's got it in store for you. He's ready to just blah all that wisdom on you. And we get a lot of our wisdom through the Bible. Pretty simple. Because if you're walking upright in integrity, you'll want to read his word. So then, once he blahs all that wisdom on you, okay, and you're upright and you understand being a person of integrity, then you will understand righteousness and justice and equity, every good path. Now, equity does not mean equality. Does anybody know the difference? So equality means everybody gets the exact same thing. What does equity mean? You've heard a lot more about equity in the past 10 years than ever before. And it's not equity as in your assets, I'm talking monetary. I'm talking about a social idea. What is equity? So it's not the same as equal. Fair. Ooh, Jesse, good. You hit it with one word. Sheesh, good job. Yes. So the idea, hold on, let me see if I can find a graphic here. I know what I'm looking for here. Image of difference. Yep, that's a pretty famous one, so it's probably going to come up. Yep, there it is. Okay. This is the idea here. Okay. So equality, you've got three different guys of three different sizes all in one box. They equally have $1. But this tallest guy doesn't really need it. He only kind of needs it, and he's just kind of getting left out because he needs more. So equity is people get what they need to put them on the same end result. So the tall guy, he doesn't need anything. He's good. The medium guy, he needs 1 box. The short guy, he needs 2 boxes, and they all get to enjoy the same thing. That's equity, okay? And so for us, equity here, then you understand righteousness and justice and equity, fairness, okay? Every good path, okay? So he wants him to be able to dispense not only righteousness and justice, but fairness. This is absolutely what you would see from like Solomon or from Jesus when they're talking about this person gets this, but this person over there gets that instead, because the fairness of the situation or compassion for the situation is more important than the hardline justice, okay? So that's kind of the idea with that one. For wisdom will come into your heart, which will help you do the equity, and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul, which will help you decide the equity. Discretion will watch over you. Understanding will guard you. So if you have these things, you'll be able to protect yourself. Delivering you from the way of evil, from men of perverted speech, who forsake the paths of uprightness, to walk in the ways of darkness, who rejoice in doing evil and delight in the perverseness of evil, the men whose paths are crooked and who are devious in their ways. Okay? So having wisdom has huge benefits. It will keep you out of trouble. It'll keep you away from trouble people. And you'll be able to dispense goodness and kindness and fairness to those who need it. So you will be delivered from the forbidden woman, from the adulteress with her smooth words. Okay? So if you have wisdom, you're not going to commit adultery. And I know, I'm smart enough to know that many people listening here have done it. Some of you, your spouse knows. Some of you, your spouse doesn't know. So here's some wisdom for you. Knock it off. Some of you were just thinking about it. I'm literally telling you right now, you want a sign from God, here it is. Knock it off. It's going to end up bad for you. If you needed a word from the Lord, there it is. Block that person. Stop talking to them. Don't worry about how much it hurts them. They will be okay. They will find someone else to flirt with. You need to remain true to your spouse. Okay? All right. Moving along. So this adulterous woman, what does she do? She forsakes the companion of her youth. So she leaves her own husband and forgets the covenant of her God. Clearly, okay? For her house sinks down to death. There's nothing good about walking in her door. It's only wickedness that's going to happen. And her paths to the departed. Sin leads to death, right? The wages of sin is death. None who go to her come back, nor do they regain the paths of life. So this is talking about the inevitable conclusion. If you are someone who gives in to the adulteress and you never turn back, destruction and death is all you have to look forward to. This is not about salvation. This is talking specifically from an earthly perspective. And that's what you need to understand about Solomon's writings. Very little is ever talked about with the redeeming qualities that God provides for your soul. He almost talks exclusively about physical earthly matters because that's the wisdom that God gave him, was physical earthly wisdom. So Song of Solomon is all about a relationship with another human being. Ecclesiastes is all about his bitterness and how useless life is, but it's because he doesn't talk about the benefit of God. And so the same thing here, he's not talking about your soul, he's talking about your life, okay? So you will walk in the way of the good and keep to the paths of the righteous, for the upright will inhabit the land, and those with integrity will remain in it, but the wicked will be cut off from the land, and the treacherous will be rooted out of it. Now, a proverb is not something that has to always be true. It's just generally true, okay? So this is generally true of any land. The upright will inhabit it, but the wicked will be cut off. Either they'll die or be taken away or be thrown in prison. That's just how life in general works, okay? All right, any questions on chapter 2? Oh, well, thank you, Sir Laugh-A-Lot. I appreciate that. Earlier in the chapter, why is there a distinction between the Lord and God is the Holy Spirit and the Father? No, just two different titles. Let me go back up to that. So Lord and God, yeah. So the word God, because it has lowercase letters, is literally God, Elohim, okay? Lord, capital O-R-D, we talked about this earlier on. It is a replacement for the word Yahweh, or I am that I am, the name that God gave Moses at the burning bush. So since it's being poetic, it's going to say that another thing I explained is Jewish poetry rhymes by concept. So it'll say the same thing in a similar way in two lines. So understand the fear of the I am from the knowledge of God. Okay, so it's trying to say the same thing twice to make the point to be poetic, but it's saying it in two different ways. So he's saying what he's literally saying by writing it that way is I am is God. God is I am. Okay? So that's the only reason why it's there, just because he's being poetic. Good question, though. Any questions here? So far, so good. All right. Cool. All right, moving on to the next chapter. Here we go. Proverbs chapter 3. And on to the pink. Here we go. For those of you just joining us, we are doing a Bible study. I am not Dinks the Puppet. I am his traveling companion. He does the videos, I do the lives. Works out better for both of us. We're in Proverbs chapter 3, reading from the English Standard Version. You're welcome to follow along or grab your own Bible. Here we go. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Yes, that's where it comes from. My son. Again, so every time he starts with my son, the person who put the group, the council that put in the chapter numbers really understood what was going on. These are different installments of wisdom nuggets, okay? So that's why each chapter seems to start with my son. Here's a new moment of wisdom. Here's a new starting over. Talking about something else, okay? So, my son, do not forget my teaching, but let your heart keep my commandments. For length of days and years of life and peace they will add to you. Again, a proverb is not a hard and fast rule, it's a general concept. So in general, this is true. Not always, but in general. Let not steadfast love and faithfulness forsake you. Bind them around your neck. So don't let go of having love. Don't let go of being faithful. Take it with you everywhere you go. Always use love. Always be faithful. Write them on the tablet of your heart. I'm sure you've heard that phrase too. So you will find favor and good success in the sight of God and man. Okay? So if you walk around with love and faithfulness as a part of who you are, it's around your neck, obvious to everyone around you. It's on the tablet, it's embedded within you, it's a part of who you are. You will find favor and good success in the sight of God and man. Now, what's wonderful about this, verse 4. Let's read this again, and then I want you to tell me what New Testament scripture this reminds you of. So you will find favor and good success in the sight of God and man. Does that sound similar to a New Testament verse that you can think of?